Tom Petty was more than a rock star. He was a storyteller, a rebel, and a voice for generations. Now, nearly a decade after his passing, veteran music journalist Jillian Garr dives deep into his legacy with her new book, Tom Petty, The Life and Music. From his Florida roots to the Super Bowl stage, Garr captures Petty's journey through rare photos, iconic performances, and unforgettable songs. And today she joins us to show us how Tom Petty is truly one of rock's biggest legends.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
So did you know a ton about Tom Petty before you started writing this book?
Not a ton. I mean, obviously, he's the kind of person that you don't have to even own any of his records and you know who Tom Petty is.
Oh, yeah.
And the idea came from the publisher, which actually is nice. Like the last book I did, Queen's Night at the Opera, that was my idea. I pitched it. You have to sell the editor on it. But when they come to you, I mean, it's always easier to be offered work than to have to find work.
Isn't that the truth? And I want to go back to 13-year-old Tom Petty, watching the Beatles perform on the Ed Sullivan Show, 1964. Tell me about what impact that had on him.
Well, I'm a huge Beatles fan too, so I looked at all his Beatles connections. And I mean, what I think about where he's watching this show with 73 million other Americans, including myself, and just is dazzled by it and the Beatles, and they were hugely inspirational. And then I thought, if you had told him that, in about 20 some years, you're going to be making a record with that lead guitarist, George Harrison, he'd have been floored. He wouldn't have believed you. So I think that's kind of incredible. It's not just the inspiration that it gave him and every teenager that wanted to make music. It was that he ended up playing with the guy and becoming a close friend of George Harrison's.
Dream come true. Yeah. That's a pinch me moment for sure. Tom Petty went on to have 28 Billboard top 10 singles. So let's really talk about the legacy that he left with 50 years as an artist. Pretty incredible.
Well, when you talk about an artist's legacy, especially musicians, you think of the songs. And so you think of things like American Girl or The Waiting or Free Fallin'. But in writing this book, I came to see that his legacy is just so broad, just how broad an impact he had, because I thought of the awards he's been given. You'd expect him to get a Grammy Award, he did. You'd expect him to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he was. But he was also given the George and Ira Gershwin Award for accomplishments in music. And that's not an award that rock and rollers usually get. He was one of the few. There may have been more since he received it. And I mean, he was surprised himself, kind of, why am I getting this award? And he said that he didn't think he was that familiar with the Gershwin's music, but I thought, you probably just don't realize you know it, because I'm sure he probably had Janis Joplin's Cheap Thrills in his record collection, and she does a version of Summertime on that album. So of course he's heard the Gershwin's music. But I think getting that kind of award shows the kind of respect he had. And it's great that he got it while he was still here.
Right, that's beautiful. And I love this question. What do you think is like the most surprising thing when you're looking back researching for this book that really had you thinking, wow, I didn't know that before doing this research?
Well, it's partly why I wore this pendant, the TCB pendant that Elvis designed for his entourage, taking care of business in a flash. This isn't the gold and diamond version that he gave to his friends. I got it at Graceland souvenir store. But I knew Tom was an Elvis fan, but I didn't know that he actually met Elvis when he was a child.
Whoa.
Because when he was 10, here he's growing up in Florida, and in the early 60s, Elvis comes to Florida to make the film Follow That Dream. And one of Tom's uncles worked as local crew on film shoots. So he says to Tom and some of the other young relatives, would you guys like to meet Elvis? And, well, okay. So
would we?
So they go to the film set, or it was actually a location shoot that day, and Tom was just dazzled by the whole experience and just the excitement of, the Cadillacs pull up with the Memphis Mafia getting out, and then Elvis comes out and everyone's screaming, and he was just really impressed by that whole experience. And it was just a simple scene. Elvis and his co-star pull up in front of a bank and they walk into the bank. And film shoots take a while anyway, but this took longer because girls kept breaking through the barricades, screaming. And
as they do.
Yeah, ruining the shot, so they have to do it again. And at the end of the day, when he goes home, Tom talks to his neighbor kid who wants to know every detail about it. And Tom's describing it. He ends up trading his slingshot to his neighbor for a box of 45s with some Elvis 45s. And that's what really started him on his music journey.
That is the coolest story. The book is full of memorabilia and divided into moments too, I understand. Tell me why, I guess, you wanted to write it in that style, in that way.
Well, that's kind of how the series of these books go. That's like the template. So that's sort of easy to slot things in. They even used to have different titles. Like I did one, Elton John at 75, because it came out the year he turned 75, so you have 75 moments. So that's like a highlights reel, someone called it. I thought that's a good way to put it. So that tells you how you're going to tell this story. I have to think of 75 different things to say about Tom Petty. And some of it's obvious, like each album. There's a chapter on each album. But then events like meeting Elvis, that's an entry, and the Beatles, Traveling Wilburys, all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of laid out for you. It's kind of nice when there's a template and you just slot it in.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I love that it's in like a sleeve like this.
No, it makes
and
it look so
everything,
fancy.
Too. It does. It looks like a record almost, how you can slide it out. And while I'm doing that too, is there a Tom Petty song that you feel like really resonates with you or one of your favorites?
Well, this wasn't totally Tom, but I like the stuff he did with the Traveling Wilburys, the record that he made with George Harrison, and let's see, who else? Bob Dylan and Roy Orbison and Jeff Lynne, a super group. And I think what's fun about it is that they just made this song because George needed a B-side for a single. So you really get to hear this group of musicians that are just making music for the fun of it. They don't care if it's a hit. It's just they're getting together and recording in Bob Dylan's home studio in Los Angeles. But then the record company says, this is too good for a B-side. Would you guys like to do some more? And they said, oh, okay, why not?
Why not?
So again, it's a kind of thing where I think in his own career, with his, whether solo or with the Heartbreakers, you're always thinking, how did the last album do? Can this one do better, etc. But the Wilburys, there's just a sort of relaxed feeling about it, about all the music, because they're not going for the hit single.
Right.
They're just doing it for fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. This is beautiful.